So, what do you do when it's raining in California and you really don't want to go outside because it's pouring rain? Apparently, there's what we call a pineapple express weather system going through California, which is kind of like I guess it's called Pineapple Express because it takes all the water and the tropical storms from the tropical area, pineapple, and then drops it all over wherever it happens to be passing over us. So, what do you do when that's happening? Stay at home and live stream content. So, happy Sunday. Well, yeah, I think it's Sunday most places. I don't think it's Saturday anywhere anymore. And then for some places, it might even be Monday. So wanted to come on today and yet another interesting themed week of conversations, support systems, and with friends and colleagues and peers and clients about conflict and how it is derailing different aspects of our lives. So, what I want to talk about today is almost like a mini masterclass of how, we've over the years, well, not just years, decades, helped human beings in the context of work, growing their business, and even at home eliminate conflict. Now, not just any conflict. So if you're dealing with, and I don't know any human that doesn't deal with emotionally charged conflict that often, if goes unchecked, will completely derail us from what we want to do in both business and life. And most of the time, I'm talking about scaling and growing businesses, but this actually is pervasive in all areas of our life. And so it's worth talking about. So if you're struggling, or if you've ever had the struggle with eliminating or figuring out how to eliminate emotionally charged conflict in your life between human beings, then that's what today's live is all about. So, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Wei, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Limitless Leader. And over the last 30 years, I've been in the area of human optimization, worked in that area, and my business partner Lisa and I have use our patented technology to help thousands of people all over the world to help eliminate conflict so that it doesn't get in the way of their growth and the scaling of their business and being able to get themselves out of the business without sacrificing revenue and growth. So let's first talk about why we want to talk about this and why not conflict, but specifically emotionally charged conflict. If you've ever had any kind of emotional charged conflict, you'll notice that the energy output that's required to navigate and manage emotionally charged conflict is significantly higher than just a run-of-the-mill annoying conflict, right? Okay, think about the last time you had a very emotionally charged conflict. And when I'm talking about emotionally charged conflict, I'm not talking about happy emotion because that'd be weird. It's like a happy conflict. That doesn't make any sense. It would be more along the lines of any kind of derivative of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, disappointment, doubt, all those different things that charge us and trigger us. Okay. And why I want to talk about this, why this is an important thing, because it should not be ignored. And because we're so ill-equipped, most of us are so ill-equipped on how to manage that conflict, oftentimes the solution is to walk away. And sometimes that is a good bridge gap solution. But just walking away actually doesn't fix the root cause of that conflict. It simply just buries it to be addressed for a later date. Now, there are people who walk away and then take it upon themselves to work with somebody to identify their own contribution. And that kind of leads to what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on how we start to solve and eliminate emotionally charged conflict from our business place and our life. But this is why emotionally charged conflicts that we encounter, we shouldn't just walk away and then do nothing else after that and hoping that it'll never happen again. Because eventually some form of it will happen again if we don't resolve the root cause behind that emotionally charged conflict. Okay. Now, to further understand, we have to go a little bit more big picture why conflict exists to begin with when it comes to one human being to another human being, or a group of human beings with another group of human beings. And this can happen inside the workplace. It can happen between family members. It can happen between countries even, okay? Fundamentally, this is why human conflict exists. Because most of us were raised in a way where if we don't know the answer, we've been trained from our childhood as through academia and through learning things and being tested on what we've learned, that if we don't know the answer, when we were first learning things, people was, oh, okay, you don't know the answer, I'll teach you. But after I teach you, you better know the answer because I'm going to punish you if you don't know the answer. So what happens is most of the time as we get older, we encounter that more than the compassion of, oh, you don't know here, let me tell you again if necessary, okay? What that means is when we don't understand something, when we can't reconcile or make sense of anything, there is this unconscious, subconscious program that has been programmed into us at a very early age that we will get in trouble if we leave this question mark in not knowing what's going on. So when one human being, and every human being has their own perspective of the world, observes another human being's behavior and can't understand what's going on, and worse yet, maybe it triggers them and they don't know what's happening and why it's happening, here is how they reconcile that trigger of, I don't know the answer, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't know the answer of what's going on. What they do is they reevaluate what that person or those group of people are doing by taking their own perspective, their own value systems of how they navigate the world and navigate life, and they cloak it over that human being or those group of human beings, and then reevaluate their behavior through the lens of their own perspective of life. Of course, if they don't understand, cloaking it over will not answer the question of what they understand. What it'll do is it will find a way to fit into their narrative, right, wrong, good, or bad, based on their own perspective of life. And thus, what happens is then they'll say, okay, now I can judge that behavior as right or wrong. And usually if you don't understand it and it's triggering you, putting your own value system over it and evaluate through your own rhetoric or your own lens of life is not going to solve the problem, right? I mean, it's I hope that makes sense, because I might have to draw this out just to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about here, because this is a very important piece. Because in order for us to resolve any kind of challenge whatsoever, the first step is always to understand fundamentally why it's happening to begin with. So many of us are trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink at solving problems, especially when it comes to people problems and human behavior problems, that we forget to take the time to, like, we're throwing solutions at it without even knowing why it's happening to begin with, right? So let me just draw out what I was just talking about just now, okay? All right, so you have one human being here that has their own lens and perspective of how they see the world and how they understand the world, okay? Now, let's do a different color here. You have another human being here, and they have their own perspectives and value systems and understanding of the world because they just have their own view on things, right? And that's true. We can all agree on that. Everybody has a different perspective on things. Now, let's say red person is observing what this person is doing, and they don't understand what's happening. Not only that, whatever blue person is doing is now triggering them and making them all, activates a emotional charged response of anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, or any derivative of those fundamental challenges. So what happens is that in an effort to understand what's going on, this is what we end up doing, because instead of trying to understand from their perspective of things, and this is why it's so important to objectively approach every situation without using your personal understanding, is the red person will then take their model of the world and they'll cloak it and then filter, reevaluate, and reobserve everything that this person in blue is doing. Because they are making meaning based on their context of how they understand the world, now this blue is going to be, their behavior and their actions is going to go hit this red layer, be evaluated, reevaluated again, and it's then going to create this distortion that is neither the blue nor the red. And then it's not going to, and in order to help red make sense of what they're observing in blue's world. This is where conflict exists, and is how it happens. Okay. I feel like drawing this out still didn't make it much better in how it made sense. But anyway, that's fundamentally why conflict exists. Okay. Now, the reason why we each have our own value system, because as we were growing up, we developed belief systems. Everybody has belief systems underneath. Why is that important? Because when we went from an infant all the way to adulthood, we need belief systems to be able to create a reality of our life, to create structure in our world, right? I believe that if I don't hurt somebody, then I am a good person, right? I believe that if I am surrounded by people that love me, then I am safe. You know, these are the belief systems that we stack up, and every human being, and this is what's so cool about understanding this process, every human being has a unique stack of beliefs. Now, not all beliefs are empowering. There are some beliefs that are disempowering. We call them limited beliefs, but these limiting beliefs are usually there for a reason, okay? Before we go about saying, oh, limiting beliefs are bad, we have to understand that the reason why we subscribe to them at a very young age and we integrated that into our neurology is because at some point in our lives, those limiting beliefs actually did good. It actually kept us safe. We just forgot to release those beliefs. And as time goes on, what happens is those belief systems on an unconscious level, on a subconscious level, will automatically, so without you having to even try, will constantly be running in the background looking for a way to stay relevant. In order for belief systems in our life to stay relevant all the way to the day we die, it is constantly paying attention to the experiences you're having and then making meaning of those experiences in order to justify that belief system. It's looking for evidence to justify that it needs to stay alive. Think about that. All your belief systems, and this is what's so amazing about the human mind and the machine and how we all operate. Every belief system is constantly paying attention to everything that you're doing in life, looking for every opportunity to feed itself by taking a perspective or making meaning of a objective experience so that it could justify its existence. So because I see, okay, like for example, if you have a belief system, this is why people smoke and get addicted to things, okay? If you have a belief system where as long as you're surrounded by people that love you, okay, then you are loved, okay? But if you're not surrounded by people that don't love you, then there's a simple thing that sometimes you can feel you're not loved. I'm not saying this is your belief, but I'm just using it as an example from clients that I've had. So what happens is this: someone will go out and they find themselves and they almost unconsciously, without even thinking about it, curate an environment where they're constantly surrounded by people that love them, right? If they find themselves in, and then when that happens, that belief in their mind will observe, make meaning of what they're observing, and they say, see, I am still relevant. That belief still holds, right? Now, on the flip side, there's a yin-yang to every belief. Now, all of a sudden, this person will find themselves in a situation where you are surrounded by people that are mean to you, people that are not nice to you. And then the belief system then goes, oh, see, okay, so that must mean that in those moments when the people aren't nice to you, that means you are not loved, or you are not lovable, or they don't love you. In which case, it justifies it on a different level, okay, what it is and what it isn't. Okay, this is how human beings fundamentally learn as well. We call it the Cartesian logic. Okay, we could talk about that another time. So beliefs need to survive by then eventually developing a narrative, because as you go through life, you have experiences which then turn into memories, which then eventually, as time goes on, turn into a narrative, also known as a story. And those stories are what facilitate the ease in the belief systems in our mind to feed ourselves. Okay. Again, what does this have to do with emotionally charged conflicts? This is why emotionally charged conflicts exist. In order for us to keep feeding that, there's so much information that we go through. The unconscious mind has to delete irrelevant information, has to distort certain information, and has to generalize in order to make sense of everything. Otherwise, we'll just go crazy. And if we have enough stories in our mind, like a specific narrative, then it's going to ignore something that doesn't fall in line with the stories that ultimately feed our belief systems. So with that understanding, now we know how, let's talk about a scenario of how an emotionally charged event will happen by using an example that was recently shared with me about a conflict in the workplace that was getting in the way of the growth of a business. We had people in the acquisitions team that were talking amongst each other, and they were supposed to work together as a team. But then what happened was one of the sales members behaved in a way, okay, that was triggering to another sales team member. And what happened was this person was actually doing something that they thought was totally innocuous. What they didn't realize was that this behavior triggered something so when someone triggers you, that person is not the cause of you being upset or angry. They are simply the trigger of something you already know how to do. Okay? So as an adult, most of the time, they are not the cause of your emotionally charged, triggered moment. Okay? The late Dr. Wayne Dyer used to use this metaphor that I love to say all the time, is that when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. Why? Because there was orange juice in there to begin with. When someone triggers you and you immediately know how to be angry, sad, hurt, whatever the case may be, that means, as an adult, that you already knew how to be triggered by whatever meaning you made of the behavior or of whatever that person did or said. A very popular one is basically someone I forgot what I was going to say. So it's totally mind blank. But so the whole point is this, is that when someone says something and where they're coming from is, this has to do with something from the Four Agreements. If you ever read read the Four Agreements, it's a quick read. If you get the audiobook, it's Peter Coyote, which is he used to be a famous actor, and he reads it, so it's a really good one. But if you haven't read it, good read. One of the agreements is about not taking things personally. Why? Because everybody's doing it from their own personal within. Now, if someone says something to you, this is a very popular one, and they're blaming you or accusing you of something that you know 100% is not true. And I just had this conversation with my best friend from high school. If you get upset, okay, something is being triggered. There are two reasons why you would get upset if someone accuses you of something. And this is why these conflicts start to kind of erupt in both work and life. When someone accuses of something and you know it's 100% not true, but you still get upset anyway, then there's one or two things. One, there's some element of truth to what they're saying. At least in your world, there's a belief that what they're saying is potentially true. The other thing is that you've displaced your anger into what was shared with what you're being accused of, to use that situation just to be angry at that person. In other words, there's some element already in your life that you are already angry about to whoever is accusing you of anything, and you're using that accusation or that moment of injustice, if you will, to be angry at that person, to be upset at that person. Okay, and we're talking about disempowering emotional charge. So how we eliminate that is fundamentally through the understanding of why conflict exists and how to then not just walk away, but more importantly, here is how you do it. The easiest way to do it is to understand this. When you elevate yourself to understand how to manage conflict in the most powerful way, in the most masterful way, the goal is not to win the argument. The goal is not to justify and fight for what's right or wrong. Because it always takes two for a conflict to erupt. The winner of every conflict is literally this, and this is why it's challenging for a lot of people to do, is whoever is the first to step up and take 100% responsibility for their own personal contribution to the conflict in order to let go of whatever the person did. We call it the transgressor, because in any conflict, there's two transgressors, one side and the other side, okay? That's the true winner of any human conflict. It's the first one to step up and take 100% ownership without being attached to whether or not the other side does it, of their own personal contribution to the conflict, of how they use the other person as a metaphorical trigger to trigger something they already knew in themselves on how to be upset about, of how to be emotionally charged about. It's not often that an adult will trigger another adult and that adult is angry. Oh, I mean that adult is the cause of why you are feeling. More often than not, I would say 98% of the time, when someone triggers you, they've just represented a metaphor of how you already know to be triggered. And whether or not that trigger is a way for your response, is a way for you to protect yourself or to feel safe, is different for everyone, right? So it's interesting. There's a lot of these conversations, and that's why there's a lot of different layers to this. And in order to keep us from making this longer than absolutely necessary, hopefully you got some deep understanding of how conflict is created, why conflict exists, and how we can start to unpack that layer by layer. Now, obviously, there's deeper layers because everybody conflicts differently with another human being. When we create conflict resolution templates inside our client organizations, we literally create a template for each person with another person. So if there's a team of, say, 5, right, we literally create 4 templates for each member of that team for every human being that could have a potential conflict with. Because the conflict that you have with another person, though it can be just deleted, distorted, and generalized to like, oh, these people are just terrible, right? The reality is each one is uniquely different, okay? I know there's a lot of different layers to this, and there's definitely a lot more specific, deeper strategies that we can provide for you in terms of how to eliminate conflict from both your workplace and for your life. Because when we work with clients, we work with them not just in their workplace, we work with their entire life. So if you like to get, more resources or other information or other trainings that we give our private clients on how to resolve these conflicts and mitigate and potentially eliminate conflicts forever that are emotionally charged, so that you can take the high road and take full responsibility and continue to grow at a quicker rate. Because when you master this conflict resolution approach, the growth that you can experience in life and in business is exponential, because we don't realize it, that emotionally charged conflicts take so much energy away that it actually delays, retards, and slows down our ability to advance and progress and evolve in life, in business, and and everything else. So if you like more information, just comment below, DM me, and as usual, there's no opt-in. I'll just find the resources that is most relevant to you, that is most helpful for you, and then I'll just send you a link, or I'll just create one. Okay, you never know. Okay, everybody's different. So anyway, I know this is probably not, I don't know, not a kind of like a potentially not an uplifting one, but it could be one that could inspire optimism that there is hope for any emotionally charged conflict to be resolved. And not only that, to be resolved forever, so that new conflict, when it comes, it's a new conflict. It's not an old thing that's being rehashed over and over again like Groundhog's Day, right? So, well, enough. So if you have any questions, just comment below, DM me. Other than that, have a fantastic rest of your weekend. If the weekend's already done, have a fantastic beginning of the week, and I will see you in the next live.